This is Dennis Money and Phil Goldberg, and that was a wonderful guest, Dana Sawyer. And Phil, a common theme that has come up recently in our interviews has been spirituality and how the development of inner spirituality translates into being a better person and creating a better world.
Yeah, I know it has come up a lot, and I think it's a reflection of to use the term Dana used, spiritual maturity. I think our generation of spiritual seekers, um, we're focused on our own development, our own inner experience. But even I think it's more than that because a lot of us, and it's not just us. It's in many of the spiritual movements and organizations. It was not just that people were focused on themselves. To the extent they had a social conscience, there was a sense that by focusing on inner development and helping other people develop in the inner life, the world would change from the inside out, so to speak. And I think there's a lot of validity to that.
Right.
But to the extent it wasn't enough, and to the extent the world is in an urgent, uh, dangerous place, people are thinking, well, we need to do more and at the very least bring the qualities of inner life and expansion of consciousness into the world in a more meaningful way.
No, well put. A warning I would give to those listening in who are just starting on a spiritual quest, or maybe just learn some meditation, or deeply involved in yoga asanas, or say something or anything to go inward. To be very careful not to become self-absorbed, not to become a narcissist that's just fully concerned and only concerned with their inner development. That one must balance that with the activity in the world. And if you're doing a good job on your inner development, your outer activity, your activity in the world, should be more life supporting, more productive. And so to keep that in mind, I think one really needs to focus on both.
Yeah, and there's a reason every spiritual tradition has what Dana and others would call karma yoga, or in other more ordinary language, service. Every church, every synagogue, every mosque, every Hindu temple, every Buddhist lineage. No matter how much the emphasis on inner practice, there's always a call to do good in the world, to help
Right.
others, to serve, and there's a feedback loop there, because when you do that, you're less egocentric, and it enhances your spiritual
Right.
development to do that.
Right. Phil, explain the term mitzvah to us from the Jewish tradition. Isn't that a good action that's going to? Yeah, I think
All
see
right,
you as a
I
scholar in that
think
area.
I think you're mistaking me from somebody who had serious Jewish upbringing. Just don't let my name fool you. I'm from Whoopi Goldberg's side of the family.
Uh-huh.
So, but no, I do remember my grandmother and others using that term. As I understand it, mitzvah is a blessing.
Right.
But
But it
that's
comes from
all.
it. But my
That's all
understanding,
I
and I could
know.
be wrong, is that it comes from it. That's a mitzvah. It's a good action. You did something good for somebody. That's good for your spiritual growth.
Yeah,
And I think maybe religion, people now that are spiritual but not religious, uh, maybe that's a good thing, because there's been in religion there hasn't been such an emphasis on inner development, at least in the West, but more on outer behavior
that's right.
and those activities. And maybe the balance is be spiritual and not religious, but take from religion that component that had to do with the helping of others. Somebody else said to me, and I want you to comment on this. I've been meaning to ask you this, Phil. Somebody was complaining that, I go into a bookstore and I look around and I see a big self help section, but I don't see any section help others. So when I heard that, I thought, I spend a lot of time in the self help section. Maybe I'm missing the point here. Maybe that was a wake up call for me. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a very good question. I think if a publisher came out with a line of help other books, they'd probably go bankrupt fairly quickly, um, because the truth is we're here on the planet to improve our lives, to learn, to grow. So it's a natural impulse to seek guidance wherever we can, and so the world of self help books grew out of that realization, and it's commercially successful. So, there's a whole genre and a whole sections of bookstores. But I think the interesting thing is if you look at a lot of the better self-help books, they'll talk about the importance of service.
Right.
It's even gurus who emphasize meditation and so forth, they'll call on their followers to serve and to
Right.
do charitable works in the world. Like we had Sadhguru on recently. His organization has a huge component of service. Almost every spiritual organization does, and there's very good reason for that. And you
Yeah,
know,
I was very impressed when I spoke to somebody both of us know, Radhanath Swami from the Hare Krishna movement. He's actually on their international council, and he wrote a book. I think it's called Coming Home, and talked about his spiritual journey. But what surprised me most and what impressed me most was here's this guy, very very inward, very sweet in many ways, and I didn't know, but he has a nonprofit in India that feeds like 200,000 street kids in Mumbai every day. So
yep,
from his deep inner development and focus on his internal life, he didn't just stay there. He took it
yep,
out and brought it to the world. And I had misconceptions about the Hare Krishna movement, Krishna consciousness movement, and he really changed my whole thinking about those folks and what they do. And I've gotten to know several others, and
yep.
very very impressive.
Yes, and you find that consistently across the board. Like the two very popular living gurus, um, Amma. People know her for her
Right.
hugging of people and the devotional practices, but they have a huge charitable wing
Hmm.
that has hospitals and clinics and good works. Sri Ravi Shankar too, and even the older
Right.
movements, the TM movement, the City Yoga movement, all of them they have that outreach, and it's dual purposed. It's to do good in the world and also to cultivate uh, qualities of compassion and ego-free action in the world, and to help people grow spiritually.
Yeah, and I think especially now with all the talks of terror in the world and whatnot, really the way to balance that is through inner development. That doesn't mean those people that are involved in inner development don't have to rise up to defend themselves or whatever. These things happen. I think these were some points that Marianne Williamson got into us in a very coherent, very articulate way that she put
Yeah,
it, and I think we'll see more of that. But one certainly cannot neglect one's inner development, but one, when doing that, has to be careful not to lose sight of their responsibilities in the world.
yeah, and to come back to our conversation with Dana, um, one of the people he's written biographies of is Houston Smith, and Houston was around in the days when uh, spiritual experience became something all the young people were pursuing through psychedelic drugs and through meditation and yoga and everything. And there was all this attention on altered states of consciousness. And he coined a phrase that was very important, which is, altered states is one thing, and altered traits, how you behave in the world is
Hmm.
quite another. And I mean, we've mentioned this before in some of our other interviews, but it's terribly important, that you can get self-absorbed and get fooled into thinking you're in some enlightened state when it's just a, a, an, a kind of exalted ego trip.
Hmm.
And someone once said, if you want to be unhappy, just think about yourself all the time.
Well, what a great statement. Well, maybe we'll leave it at that today. But Phil, another excellent guest, Dana
Yes,
Sawyer, his biography of Aldous Huxley and also of Houston
Houston
Smith.
Smith.
We'd recommend. Actually, I have not read either book yet, but I'm
I
gonna
read
get the
both, and they're both very worthwhile.
yeah I'm gonna get the Huxley book this week and look forward to reading that.
Two
Uh,
important figures in modern spirituality that people should all know of, and Dana's books are a good start.
Great. All right, Phil. Thank you once
Okay,
again. Good one.
next time.
Adios.